The sun was sinking low over the Arizona desert, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. You'd been traveling for hours, and the vast, empty landscape was starting to wear on you. The weight of silence pressed against your ears, broken only by the occasional rustle of wind through the scrub and the creak of your saddle. The isolation was enough to make your skin crawl. As twilight deepened, you spotted something ahead, a shape, distant but unmistakable, moving across the horizon. It was large, loping awkwardly, and covered in a reddish hue that blended with the fading light. You squint, trying to make sense of it. At first, you think it's a wild horse, maybe an elk, but no, this thing is much larger. It moves in an almost lumbering way, too high off the ground, its legs too long, its gait unnatural compared to any creature you'd seen before. Then, it turns toward you. Your breath catches in your throat as the figure lumbers closer, and you realize what you're seeing. It's an enormous, filthy creature with matted reddish fur. Its skin was torn and weathered from years in the wild. But that isn't the part that sends a shiver down your spine. No, it's what was strapped to its back. A man, or what was left of one. The figure slumped lifelessly over the creature's hump, skeletal arms bound to the beast with rough rope. The bones of its hands hung limply, clattering against each other with each step the creature took. The skull, sun-bleached and hollow, lolled to one side, staring blindly ahead as if still surveying the barren desert. You freeze, heart hammering in your chest. The stories you'd heard around the campfire, the rumors of a ghostly creature roaming the desert with a dead man tied to its back. Those tales come flooding into your mind. The Red Ghost, the legend of terror that had haunted this land for years. No one believed it was real, but here it was, right in front of you. The creature let out a low, haunting bellow, its wide, crazed eyes locking onto yours. It bolts towards you, each of its thunderous steps reverberating through the ground. Panic surges through you. The reins slipped from your hands as you scrambled back, legs unsteady beneath you. The beast looms closer, the skeletal rider rattling with every step, its hollow eye sockets seeming to fix on you with a menacing emptiness. You can smell it now, the stench of rot and decay from the desert sun baking flesh and bone for far too long. The creature reared back suddenly, its bellow echoing across the empty plains, and you finally snap out of your frozen terror. Without looking back, you turn and run, stumbling over the rough terrain, heart pounding, lungs burning. Behind you, the eerie sound of clattering bones and the heavy footfalls of the beast seem to follow for an eternity, until finally, the sound fades into the distance. You don't stop running until your legs give out beneath you. When you finally dared to look back, the creature was gone. The desert was quiet once more, but the image of that ghastly thing and its long-dead rider would haunt you for the rest of your days. You'd never know exactly what it was, but the legend would forever cling to your mind, whether it was a supernatural being or just a piece of the past lost to time and madness. You have just encountered Arizona's legendary Red Ghost. The Red Ghost is a cryptid that comes to us from American folklore and legend. The stories buzzing about this creature began in the 1880s, and more specifically, it's believed that the first story to involve the Red Ghost was in 1883, when it trampled a woman to death. It was then that an American legend was born. Descriptions as well as the capabilities of the Red Ghost enjoy a wide range of possibilities, with a few details that are pretty consistent. It's said to be a large, lumbering creature, and some say it was up to 30 feet tall. One witness said that they saw the Red Ghost disappear into thin air when they were chasing it, while another said they saw it kill and eat a grizzly bear. One cowboy said that they'd tried to rope the creature, and that it almost killed him and his trusty steed. Many accounts regarding the Red Ghost also paint the picture that it's a very aggressive and dangerous creature. The key details about the Red Ghost are that it was a large, reddish-colored beast with a devilish-looking creature on its back. Before we continue further with the legend of the Red Ghost, let's talk about the facts. See, this episode is a bit of a special one where myth and history go hand in hand with the other. Two sides of the same coin. Let's talk about America's Camel Corps. When I say Camel Corps, I'm not talking about a genre of music centered around the use of camel noises for making awesome metal music. I'm talking about the United States Camel Corps, which was a mid-19th century experiment conducted by the United States Army in using camels as pack animals in the southwestern United States. In 1836, U.S. Army Major George H. Crossman encouraged the War Department to use camels for transportation. He was convinced from his experience in the American Indian Wars that camels would be useful as beasts of burden. Around 1848 or possibly earlier, U.S. Army Major Henry C. Wayne conducted a more detailed study around the creatures and also came to the same conclusion and recommended the importation of camels to the War Department. Mississippi Senator Jefferson Davis agreed with the two majors, but the idea didn't have much momentum behind it. Until 1853. In 1853, President Franklin Pierce appointed Senator Davis to Secretary of War, and for one reason or another, more and more U.S. forces found themselves needing to operate in desert regions. At this point, the President as well as Congress began to take the idea of using camels for transportation just a bit more seriously. It was determined that the Army needed to improve transportation in the southwestern United States, and in Secretary Davis's 1854 annual report, he writes, "I again invite attention to the advantages to be anticipated from the use of camels and dromedaries for military and other purposes." On March 3, 1855, the U.S. Congress appropriates $30,000 for the project. This is the equivalent of $981,000 in 2023. Major Wayne was assigned to procure the animals on June 4, 1855. Wayne departed New York City on board the USS Supply. After arriving in the Mediterranean Sea, Wayne began procuring camels. Stops included Tunisia, Greece, Turkey, and Egypt. They acquired 33 animals, specifically 19 females and 14 males. There were a few different species among the camels acquired. There were 2 Bactrian, which is a type of 2-humped camel, 29 Dromedary, which is a species of 1-humped camel, a dromedary calf, and 1 Bugdi, which is a cross between a male Bactrian and a female dromedary. Major Wayne also acquired pack saddles and covers because he was certain that proper saddles couldn't be found, let alone purchased in the United States at that time. Wayne hired 5 camel drivers, some Arab, some Turkish, and on February 15, 1856, the USS Supply set sail for Texas. There were strict rules established for the care, watering, and feeding of the animals in Major Wayne's charge, which meant no experiments were to be conducted regarding how long a camel could survive without water. During the crossing, 1 male camel died, but 2 calves were born and survived the trip. On May 14, 1856, 34 camels, so a net gain of 1, were safely unloaded at Indianola, Texas. All the surviving animals were in better health than when the vessel had set sail for its return trip to the United States. On Secretary Davis's orders, the captain of the USS Supply sailed again for Egypt to acquire more camels. While the USS Supply was on its second voyage, Major Wayne marched the camels from the first voyage through San Antonio to a place called Camp Verde, Texas. On February 10, 1857, USS Supply returns with a herd of 41 camels. While the USS Supply was on its second mission of camel acquisition, 5 camels from the first herd had died. At some point, the second collection of camels joined the first herd at Camp Verde, which had been officially designated as the Camel Station. The Army now owned 70 camels. This was the start of the Camel Corps. Also in the same year of 1857, a report named Purchase of Camels for the Purpose of Military Transportation was issued by Secretary Davis. Let's fast forward a bit, and by late 1863, in the midst of the Civil War, the Army's camel experiment was essentially finished. In September of 1863, Secretary of War Edwin Stanton ordered the camels to be put up for auction. An entrepreneur of the frontier named Samuel McLaughlin bought the entire herd in February of 1864 and proceeded to ship several camels out to Nevada to haul salt and mining supplies in Virginia City. It's believed the animals that remained in California were sold off to zoos and circuses. The Texas herd was auctioned off shortly thereafter in 1866 to a lawyer named Ethel Coopwood. At this point, details get a bit fuzzy, but the camels are sold off to the highest bidder, and amidst all of that, more than a couple escaped out into the wilderness and became feral. I believe with this we have a proper foundation to stand on while discussing the Red Ghost. Days after the woman was trampled to death in 1883, a group of prospectors reported a large red-haired creature tearing through their campsite. Days after that incident with the prospectors is when the Red Ghost is described as being 30 feet tall and responsible for knocking over 2 wagons. At both of these incidents, red hair was found as well as cloven hoof prints, evidence left behind by the legendary creature. When the cowboy I mentioned earlier tried to lasso the Red Ghost, a few things happened. 1, he was almost killed by the beast. This turns into a tall tale because no cowboy worth their salt could have been bested by some normal animal, so the legend of the Red Ghost continues to grow. Another important thing is that up until this point, the Red Ghost has always been described as a huge reddish-colored beast ridden by a devilish-looking creature. This cowboy was able to very clearly see that the devilish-looking creature that rode the huge red beast was, in fact, a human skeleton. Months later, a group of men shot at the reddish-colored beast, and while they may have missed the beast, they shot the head of the skeleton clean off. The skull still had a bit of hair and skin attached to it. The legend of the Red Ghost stayed strong until 1893, when a farmer found the large beast eating in his yard. He took aim, fired, and the beast went down with 1 shot. Upon further investigation, it was discovered that the huge reddish-colored beast was, in fact, a camel. The animal's back was heavily scarred from rawhide strips that had been used to tie down the body of a man. Some of the leather straps had cut into the camel's flesh, and as for the human body and how it came to be attached to the camel, we don't have any concrete answers, so everything about it remains a mystery to this day. There's something that I do feel is worthy of note. Before the cowboy and the prospectors that shot the head off of the Red Ghost's skeleton rider, there was another witness to the legend. A man named Cyrus Hamblin, who was a rancher on the Salt River, discovered the Red Ghost one day while rounding up his cows. Hamblin did in fact recognize and identify the Red Ghost as a camel, with something tied to its back that resembled the skeleton of a man. Despite Hamblin having a reputation as an honest man and one that doesn't tell too many tall tales, for one reason or another, people refused to believe his story. In a way, like a lot of cryptids and legends, the Red Ghost is a product of government experimentation. The verifiability of some parts of the legend remain questionable due to records going missing or simply being lost over time. For me, I believe that the Red Ghost was a member of the Camel Corps that was released to the wilds. Add in a corpse strap to its back, leather straps being worn down over the years to produce an even weirder looking silhouette, the simple fact that camels aren't native to the area or known to a majority of the people at the time, and you have a recipe ripe for making a cryptid and a legend. The Red Ghost is the story of an animal that was let loose in the Arizona wilderness, combined with interesting circumstances and a big game of telephone being played by all the people in the area. The stories grew to legendary proportions, and at some point, an aggressive feral camel was suddenly a 30-foot tall beast ridden by a devilish creature that was capable of hunting and eating grizzly bears. Like most American legends, especially those that come from the Wild Wild West, it's always a fun story. Who knows? My theory of the Red Ghost being a remnant of the Camel Corps just living in the wilderness could be wrong. If you find yourself out and about in the Arizona desert, keep an eye out. You may catch a glimpse of an interesting red-looking beast minding its own business. Just keep in mind not to get too close though. It's been known to kill people when provoked. That concludes this episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you enjoyed it, then like, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends. This is Myths, History, and D&D, and I hope you tune in next time.